Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to see you all, and I do see you. Rabbi Prosnit and I are here for Lunch and Learn today. You're all muted for now, but that will change as we move along. So I want to welcome you all to another Lunch and Learn without lunch. I am so looking forward to that tuna fish. I have never looked forward to tuna fish so much in my life as I am now, and it will come. We hope you're safe and well, and I want to welcome Rabbi Prosnit, who hardly needs a welcome, but he does. I do want to note that he begins on July 1 in 15 days as our new senior rabbi. And I want to say Yasher Koach to him on a superb message to the congregation at the annual meeting. And thanks to Jackie Gruscott for her arrangements today. So we're going to go right into this. It's going to be a little bit different today. Our subject is the last 100 days. They've been different. What have we learned about ourselves and about the world we live in? Obviously, referring to the pandemic and to crisis.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to divide this into two segments. The first segment will be what we've learned about ourselves. I'm going to offer 5 minutes of reflection, followed by Rabbi Prosnit, who will do the same. Then we're going to go to breakout groups. They'll be arbitrary. You'll be in a breakout group arbitrarily with probably four others. There'll be 5 computers in all for 5 minutes of discussion, and then we'll come back and I'll go over those details when we reach that. So let me go right to it. Start with some reflections myself on what I've learned about myself. A little bit of biography. Many of you know that I grew up in the South, grew up in Atlanta. During one summer in Atlanta, I had a suntan that made my already tan skin even darker. And I boarded a segregated Atlanta bus one day, sat as usual in one of the front rows, and was promptly ordered to go to the back of the bus. I grew up in a home where civil rights and civil liberties were the bread and butter of our daily diet. Terry and I marched on Washington in 1963. Many of you have marched with us. Since then, a lifetime of support for civil rights. I thought I knew something about what it is to be Black in America. How wrong I was. How wrong I was. I knew next to nothing. Next to nothing. I have not come to grips with white privilege. I know it exists, but I have not come to grips with it. I struggle with the fact that my path to adulthood, except for a few painful anti-Semitic incidents, was smooth. My freshman class at an elite New England university consisted of 998 white men and 2 of color, one of whom was Asian. So what I've learned about myself, that after all these years, I must listen, I must struggle, I must ask for forgiveness for so much. I still have to figure out what else I must now do and what to suggest to others. So that's the first thing I've learned. The second is I've taken for granted the women and men who labor in underpaid jobs. I've known that they're underpaid. I've known how difficult it is. Groceries, public transport, restaurant work, frontline healthcare. I've known, but I have taken them for granted. And the third thing I've relearned and constantly reminded of is my own vulnerability. And at the same time, how important relationships are and how relationships fortify and heal, and how important our community is, our synagogue community, our larger community. Shabbat, we're big attenders of Simchat Shabbat, have been since retirement. More important than ever, being with you all on Friday nights, the music of our community, and I'm going to be looking to Rabbi Prosnit to show us and our community the way in the months and years ahead. And with that, I turn to Rabbi Prosnit.
Good morning. I think rabbis like to talk in threes. So I have three things that I've learned about myself as well. And they're similar to Rabbi Kroloff's too. First is I've learned what it means to be working from home with two young children, with a wife that works from home as well, and the challenges that makes for my patience and the strategy of how to work around both of our jobs and to make sure that our children are safe and being as productive as possible. It's not, I knew the importance of preschool, and I knew the importance of childcare, and now I know it even more. And I also know how lucky I have been to being able to have a home where both of us can be flexible and can navigate this. And while there are many people who don't have the privilege that I do to have to take half a day off and then be with my children, and that there are many people that don't have that. And so I'm excited for preschool to reopen up, but also spending this time with Zoe and Caleb, just see developmentally how much they've grown in this past 100 days. I've learned that I can adapt pretty quickly. And that I can lead in a time where we are challenged. I've been kind of at the forefront of the planning of the synagogue programs and services after when COVID-19 hit. And while I did not think this was going to be the atmosphere that I was coming into as the senior rabbi, it has given me the confidence that I can lead when difficult times do take place in our community. And hopefully this will be one of the most difficult times, but I think it has given me the skills to navigate the challenges that we may face ahead. And the last thing is that I have a lot to learn about race as well. We had a family Zoom call last week, and one of my cousins is married to a Black woman, and she shared with us how difficult it is sometimes to come to our joyful events and to be with us. And while we are, I would say, pretty progressive, and the term I think would be pretty woke about what's happening in our community and in our world and in our country, that she feels isolated sometimes in our family because we don't talk about race, because when incidents happen like we've seen this past couple of weeks and years as well. We don't discuss it, that she think that we kind of maybe push it aside too much, or we take for granted our privilege and we don't even understand how lucky we are. She shared with us she has a biracial child and they live in Brooklyn, and they kind of tell their kids, I tell my child, Caleb, like if there's a problem in the park or something's happening, you can go find a police officer and they'll help you. And that's something that she has a challenge telling her child to do, same age as Caleb. And that kind of opened my eyes a little bit. And while I just, Ariel and I perhaps discuss race with Caleb and Zoe, it's not a conversation we have all that much. And maybe how we need to diversify our books that we have, the TV shows that we watch, to make sure that the people that we interact with, and so make sure that the people of color are not just people who are serving us, but the idea of how do we branch out to really understand what individuals go through who don't look like us. And so that's something I've been really struggling with and glad to and have felt really uncomfortable with as well. And those are things, and I'm sitting with that discomfort has helped me realize that I have a lot to learn, a lot more to read, and a lot more to listen as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to now give you a chance to talk among yourselves. We're going to have a 5-minute breakout period for you to share what you've learned about yourself during these last 100 days. You'll go into breakout groups. It'll be arbitrary. You may or may not know who is there. Just one second. I want to see if I can admit somebody here. Okay. I'm going to ask, when you go into the group, very quickly, would one person designate himself or herself to be the reporter? Okay. And because after your 5 minutes, we're going to come back together, and Rabbi Prosnit is going to recognize as many of the reporters as possible as time permits to give us a very, very quick highlight, 30 seconds, less than a minute, of a few highlights from your conversation with no names.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're so just one thing, if you're on the phone, it might be a challenge to be in this breakout. So you might have to call back in about 5 minutes because it might work, but just to let you know, to give you a heads up that it might not work.
If we lose you, please come back.
And I will let people know when there's 1 minute left and we'll regroup. There'll be something that jumps up on your screen that says join a breakout room.
Okay, I've been on these, and Rabbi Prosnit has, and they work very, very well. It's a chance to talk. So, Rabbi, we're ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have been invited to your breakout room.
Now I should come by, right? We can try, maybe. I'll give it a try.
Hi, Janice. We are in breakout rooms. So I'm going to move you to a breakout room that you can talk to people.
I'm back. Okay. How's working okay, Ethan?
Yeah, I'm just trying to, if someone joins late, I don't know if I can move them into a breakout room. So I'm trying to
Okay.
see that. Yeah, once the breakout room starts, I don't think you can move them.
Okay, so we have a few people here. Can you hear us? No, that's okay.
But when I recreate the rooms again, the next time they'll be able to.
Okay, okay.
Happy birthday, Terry.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think we'll have time for quite a few reports because we're right on schedule. Okay, now I just
What happened?
lost the picture. Can you hear me?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, I see you.
I don't see you. I lost the picture. It says
Oh.
after download completes, run Zoom. Huh.
I see you.
Okay, let me see if I can get back here.
Maybe it's on a different screen. Should I let people know they have 2 minutes left?
Sure. Before, just 1 second.
Yeah.
I think I need to launch. Let me see if I can launch the meeting here. Let me see if I can get back in. 1 second.
Okay.
Okay.
We're back.
Okay, now.
We're off again.
Now I'm lost again. Now I got desktop. Okay, let's go back to here. Huh. Now I got a very small screen and
This right here.
Do you see you?
I see if I'm on a very small screen with other things here.
Yeah, so I think you should.
Okay. I want to make that primary. Okay. I've got 3 others and then this one is highlighted, but it's tiny. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure. I don't know how to get back big.
Well, so don't worry about it. Does it matter?
Well, yeah, I can't see much of anything. Okay, it says desktop 1.
Safari launch meeting. What about that on the bottom here?
Okay, should I go to share?
Yeah. All right. No.
Something. I got something here anyhow. Okay.
You shared your screen.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. Whatever.
Is that okay?
Well, if you share your screen, then no one can see you really. Anyone else? I would
Oh,
maybe stop sharing your screen and see what happens.
okay. Stop. Rename spot pin. Stop video. Mute audio. And I don't want to do that.
It was good. So what happened?
Should I go back one?
No. Push escape maybe. Push escape.
On my computer.
Here, let me see what. I'm going to stop sharing your screen for a second.
I'll move over to you.
Oops, that's not.
Okay.
All right. All right. Are you back?
Yeah.
I am back.
All right. Perfect. Great.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Should we bring everyone back?
Yes, let's do. Yeah, and you'll
Sure.
I'll let you manage this.
Yeah. Do you want people to respond back to you? Like, do we want to respond to them?
Sure.
If we feel the need. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. If we feel the need. Yeah. Yes.
So the breakout rooms will end in 40 seconds and everyone will be back.
40 seconds. Great. Hey, Carol. See you.
We can't hear you, Carol.
We know you're there. Okay, everybody's coming back. Welcome back, everyone.
We hope that worked technologically. I think hopefully it did. I think all the rooms have been closed. I see everyone here. So we're gonna have the opportunity to share a little bit. So if you do want to share, it's challenging when everyone unmutes themselves at once, but if you want to just share it in the chat box, say, I would like to speak, and then I will call on you. We're reflecting on what you heard in your group. What did you learn the past 100 days during this pandemic, during the Black Lives Matters movement as well? So does anybody want to share what they heard in their group?
Preferably the person who's going to be a reporter, if you can.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Carol
Cohen. So Carol, you can unmute yourself.
Okay. Well, there are a few themes. One was isolation, that a lot of the people in the group felt isolated, and especially one person who's recently become a widow. But she said that even though it was isolating and she had hoped that she could spend time with other people, she has found inner strength to be able to do it on her own, which was a wonderful thing to realize. Everybody also was very upset about the protests, but hoping very much that this would make a difference, that we would move on to a better place, and that people would recognize this. And then one of the people in our group, one of the younger people, said that she's now very grateful for all that she had, that all the stresses she had in life, she realized now, she put it in perspective, and really the things that she had before, her job, the wonderful things that she had to look forward to, she really appreciates them more.
Great. Thank you, Carol.
Elaine.
Elaine, I see your hand up. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Rabbi.
Oh.
We really did feel that we need to examine our prejudices. All of us realize that we do have prejudices that we don't think about very often, except when a stressful situation says you need to think about this. That it's very hard to empathize when you don't have any experience in how other people are feeling. And you can say you're not a racist, but when do you speak up? What are your thoughts? What are your prejudices? And then are you acting on them? And the fact that, of course, we felt isolation was something that we had not experienced before to this extent, and that we need to be more aware. We spoke a little bit about the fact that we have seen and continue to see police stopping cars, especially in later part of the day, where there are Black drivers, and that this is pervasive. You see it on Route 22, you see it on East Broad Street. And we all look forward to being able to express our feelings better and to become involved, as we are doing now as a community.
Nice, thank you. Elaine Weil. You have to unmute yourself.
How's that?
Good, good.
The combination of having more time to be at home, or that we must be at home, and spending more time thinking, some more introspection regarding what's going on in the world today. I think it gives what we're discussing, it gives us an idea of, you know, in terms of our own histories, how insulated have we been? Those who have really never had any friends other than Jewish friends, those whose experiences have been mostly within the Jewish world. And what is going on now is certainly not unknown to us. but at a level that is unprecedented, and therefore gives us the opportunity to look at ourselves a little bit more. And what can we do? You know, some things in terms of biases are implicit, some are overt, but this is an opportunity to question ourselves a little bit.
Thank you. Ronnie Epstein.
Similar themes came up with our group. Temple has become more important now to the speaker. She looks forward to the sessions, all the information in classes, and finds that they're lighting candles more often now, and this will continue. Another speaker has a daughter-in-law of color, and she knew before, but has become even more aware how difficult, how different her experiences were. And this person is hoping that her grandchild now will not have the prejudice that she, the speaker, grew up with, that he'll be surrounded with more variety of people. As a child, this person only really associated with one or two non-Jewish persons. And so for the grandchild, the hopes are more exposure. COVID-19 has brought the speaker to grips with his own mortality. He's become much more reflective and spiritual and appreciative of personal relationships and relationships with the greater community. Another speaker said, I've realized I've not gone out socially with people of color. They're more from what I know and Jewish people, and it's hard to, I understand how hard it is to appreciate the problems of minorities. And the final speaker, that we need to break out of our cultural comfort zone. We tend to gravitate and associate with people we're more comfortable with. In a previous residence city, it was a much more multicultural surrounding. And now I find there's a need to meet with a variety of people and expose myself to those different heritages and cultures and be more appreciative. That was a summation of our group.
Thank you. Any other people want to share what they heard in their groups?
Rabbi, this is.
Yep.
Ellie?
Oh, Ellie, you're great.
Ellie?
Oh, you muted yourself again, Ellie, so.
I have to keep holding it down?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to say, Rabbi, that I've done a lot of thinking about this racial injustice that we've been experiencing, and the phrase Black Lives Matter. And I'm reminded, I don't know if anybody is familiar with the song from South Pacific, about we've got to be taught. And actually it's what happens in the song, it's we're taught prejudice. We're taught by parents. And I think when I see little children, and I was a teacher as well as a school psychologist, the little children don't know the difference between Black and white. They can be friends with each other and just be friends with each other. But I think as time goes on, a lot of people formulate these prejudices. And when we talk about educating Blacks, and I believe that, and giving them better health care and giving them better opportunities, we have to be educated. We have to unlearn these prejudices before we can learn and understand what it's like to walk in another's shoes. I feel that people have these preconceived notions and that they have to be erased. And the only way they can be erased is with educating us and enlightening us. And only then will Black people and any minority, I think with respect to the Jews also.
Thank you, Ellie.
Okay, I think then they will be treated equally. As
Very thoughtful and very helpful. Thank you. Ethan, do we have maybe one more?
One more reflection. Does anyone want to share what they've learned about themselves or what they've heard in their groups? Report out to us.
If not, we can move forward.
Yeah.
No? No one? Oh,
I don't see anyone, so.
okay. Thank you. That was very, very helpful. And certainly reflects a lot of my thinking. Imagine Rabbi Prosnit as well. In some ways, Rabbi, there's a pathway there for next steps. A lot of good suggestions. So let's move to part 2, which is what have we learned about the world? And when Rabbi Prosnit and I were discussing this, he asked me, so what do we mean by the world? And I said, anything beyond yourself. Anything beyond yourself. That could be, it could be your family, your town or city, state or nation. What have you learned about the world, about religion, culture, you name it, anything beyond yourself. And for this, I'm going to ask Rabbi Prosnit to reflect first.
So I'll start with religion. I've learned the importance of the reform movement during this time on 2 levels. First, our ability to adapt and be flexible in our practices, in our religion, and in our in how we celebrate and how we mourn. I always knew the importance of movements, but I think that this has highlighted why Reform Judaism is so important to our community. The movement has been able to adapt. Our synagogues have been able to adapt. We've celebrated Passover and Shavuot online, and while it's always better to be in person, we've realized that we are Reformed Jews. We continue to change, and we have to face the changes in our society. I also am proud of the Reform movement and their ability to take stances on issues and be a key pillar in making sure that there is equality and that we look at systemic racism in our country and that we have to continue to be that moral voice. There was a Ford article earlier this a month or 2 months ago saying like, oh, this is the end to movements. This is the end to conservative Judaism, Reform Judaism. It's all going to just be one Judaism. And I don't believe that. And I think that this past 100 days shows the need for this and our ability to adapt and also speak out strongly and firmly towards those most in need. Another thing I learned about, and this is what Rabbi Kroloff kind of touched upon this, is essential workers. I think our world has redefined what essential workers are all about. And I would hope that some of our policies will be changed because of what we know is now essential to our postman, to our grocery store deliverers, to the truck drivers, to our doctors as well. And I think it has made us more aware of the ecosystems of work in our lives and how they affect each individual. And I think that the larger world has realized that as well. And hopefully there will be different ways that they are treated, as well as minimum wage and hero pay for all of those individuals as well. I think that lastly, the world has realized that it's not going to be the same moving forward. That things, we will not go back to normal. Both, I believe, on a pandemic level and a race level. That we will have to institute changes in our daily lives. And I think the world has really recognized that. And so if that's a face mask for a long, long time, or if that's looking at how movie theaters are cleaned or our air travel is different, I think there will be the January of 2020 will look entirely different from our January of 2025 and going forward because of this. I think that the plates have shifted to make and have realized how interconnected we are and how we need to respond and change our daily routines. And unfortunately, I think some people will not take that seriously, but I think that's a must. As well as with, I think that these protests will help us have made our town and our community think differently about police, as well as systemic racism that in our education systems as well. I heard the mayor say and students at a protest saying we need to look at our curriculum differently. We need to teach Black history. We all still have to acknowledge where the checkered past of Westfield, not just around anti-Semitism and where we could live, but where Blacks could live. We have to recognize the land that we've taken from American Indians, and just recognizing that our past is not always great, and there's challenges that we have to face as well.
Thank you for that. Your reference to the mayor, I wasn't at the rally in Westfield. I would have liked to have been there, but I didn't think it was a safe thing to do. But I did watch the video. I assume it's still available to you all. I was struck by the statement of the 16-year-old African-American young woman who was an organizer, initiator of the pain that she had every day going to school in Westfield schools. I didn't know that. Struck by that. Okay, let me tell you what I've learned about the world. And first, I want to warn you that the first couple of things I'm going to say are not pretty. And I'm going to try to end on a good note, on a high note, but I'm going to start kind of low. I never thought I would say this, but I believe that this nation is at risk of becoming a fascist state. I'm not saying that we will. And I sincerely hope that we won't, and in my heart, I believe we won't. But I do believe we are at risk of the possibility of that happening. The utter incompetence of our leadership is beyond frightening. The moral failure is appalling. I had a birthday a couple of weeks ago. It was June 1. That was the day that our leadership decided to tear gas peaceful demonstrators and walk to St. John's Episcopal Church on the other side of Lafayette Park in Washington to hold the Bible upside down. When I saw that, I realized that really anything is possible. So my first thing I've learned is that we are at risk of becoming a fascist state. I will say also, I realize in that connection that the November election is the most important election in 160 years of American history, from the days of the Civil War to today. To me, it's without question the most important. Number two, I've learned that COVID-19 is a dry run. It's a dry run for climate change. Many of us won't be around for the effects of this one, but climate change will have a tipping point. And past that point, there will be no vaccine. So the urgency to save not only our nation and our planet becomes more blatant to me and more real to me as I see the COVID-19 threat is deep and profound and life-threatening. But global warming and the end of our planet, even more so. That's the downers. Now for the upper. We have partners. We have partners. I've seen an outpouring of good and decent people all over this country and all over this world. Peaceful, I'm amazed at the peacefulness of the protests. I know there's been looting. I know there's been unlawful, dangerous behavior, but overall it has been peaceful. I am struck by that. I am struck by the diversity of the protests. I am struck by sheriffs walking arm in arm in the front line of protesters. I have seen dozens and dozens of officers taking a knee with others. I've been impressed by mayors, especially Black female mayors, but across the board, male and female, Black and white, very, very impressive. And I've been impressed by many governors, not all, but many. What I see happening is a covenant, a brit, to use the Hebrew word, a covenant of good people who are coming together at very different levels. And if every decent person does his or her part, we're going to get through this, because there are many, many more good people in this world than bad. And that's the brit, that's the company that I want to be a part of. And finally, just a little story that some of you heard me use. I know I'm becoming sermonic now, forgive me. But Michael Jordan scored 60 or more points in 5 games in the NBA. In one of those games, it was a 60-point game for Jordan. A young rookie entered at the end. He scored 1 point. After the game, the rookie was interviewed. He was asked by a reporter, how will you remember your first game in the NBA? And you know what he answered? He said, I'll remember it as the game when Michael Jordan and I scored 61 points. So I want to remember, I want to remember this time. I hope we'll remember the pandemic and the racial crisis. Be able to say it's the time when I scored 1 point and I joined with all the good people of America to make it a better place. And I do believe, this is what I have learned, I do believe that it is possible for this to happen. End of sermon. Forgive the sermonics. Rabbi Prosnit.
We're going to break out into groups one more time, where you can share what you've learned about the world during this time. We will recreate our rooms. And that you'll have 5 minutes and we'll have the opportunity to share at the end as well.
And if we can have a reporter, it would be helpful.
Your rooms are open.
Okay.
Are people having trouble getting into the rooms? So everyone's okay?
We see a few people who are with
Yeah.
us. Are you just hanging out, or can you get into a breakout? If you're having trouble, we'll be back in about 4 minutes.
Do people need help getting into the rooms?
Looks like there are
Okay,
about 7 people besides you and me that are
that's fine.
here, and that's okay.
Yeah.
We're glad to see you all. Your faces, your refrigerator, your floor, your ceiling. Quiet time. If anybody, Ethan, if anybody wants to talk to us who's still in this, they can indicate if somebody wants to say something.
People can unmute themselves right now. Yes.
You can unmute yourself if you want to share anything with the two of us, because we're still with you.
Yeah. Someone asked for help.
Okay, Carol Cohen. Was that earlier? Yeah, that was earlier, probably. Okay. Elaine, I see you. Hello. Pearl Wiener, I see your refrigerator, I think.
Rabbi Kroloff?
Yes,
Should I give everyone a 2-minute warning?
yes, please.
I just want to tell you how much I agree with you about what's going on in the world and how important it is to get that vote out and get this horrible man out of office. Because I can only see things getting worse while he's here. Every time he opens his mouth, things get worse. So I'm just hoping that everybody will be diligent and everybody will vote, whether by mail or in person. And I hope that the voting is secure.
Thank you. At least one candidate expressed great concern about whether there'll be an honest election, and that's a very, very important.
Yeah.
I was just reading about the Georgia primaries. 7 hours of line. Can you imagine that?
It's just so undemocratic.
It's so unfair. How could they let that happen?
Because the Supreme Court ruled a couple of years ago that civil rights, the special legislation of 40 years ago was no longer necessary because everybody has their civil rights secure.
I guess not.
Not true.
Mm.
No.
While nobody's talking, I just wanted to tell you how much I, along with everybody else, appreciate these lunch and learns and the Bible class and all the activities from the temple. It has been life-saving.
Thank you, Rabbi Prosnit, and everyone else involved.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
There was good news from the Supreme Court today, though.
Yes, did not see that.
Yeah, it was a 6-3 vote that gay and lesbian and transgender rights are under the civil rights law license.
That's good.
Yeah. Should I bring people back?
Sure. Here we go. Here we go. Welcome back. Just looks like,
I'll join in 1 second once they're
okay.
close.
Here we go. There we go.
Oh, wow.
Welcome back, everyone.
Great.
Rabbi Kroloff, I just have to tell you, I love the picture of your family in the background.
Thank you.
Everybody says that.
I've received 723 emails about it.
On the 724th.
Thank you very much. I was thinking about doing something else for background, but
Oh,
your encouragement. Yeah, we're going to have a special lunch and learn someday at a date to be determined when I'll introduce you to everyone and I'll give you 30 minutes on each grandchild. Sure. Just kidding.
You could share about, everyone could share about their children and grandchildren. Just show
a
us.
very long lunch.
I know.
Rabbi, I don't know if you know, but your grandson Aaron is quoted in this week's Jewish News.
Grandson Aaron.
Siegel is quoted in this week's Jewish News about
Did not know that.
participating.
Thank you. Very good to hear that. I will check it out. Please buy extra copies. No. Rabbi Prosnit, it's all yours.
Yeah, so we're going to open it up to have a little bit more of a reflection. What did you hear in your breakout rooms? And then we'll wrap it up at the end. Does anybody want to share some common themes or reflections that they heard? Hillary, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Hillary.
It's good to see you guys.
you.
So in our group, we had talked about the fact that like a common theme was kind of the comparison of what we had versus what we have now. That there's going to be a new normal going forward. It's not going to be what our old normal was. There is change that's going to have to happen. And that can be frightening. That can be scary. You know, small changes are very difficult to handle and very difficult to do. And this is huge changes we're all facing. And in those big, giant changes, you have to kind of look at some of the smaller things that you had in life. You know, being grateful for the temple, being grateful for the community, you know, missing silly things like going to the old building and actually being able to just be inside the temple and not on Zoom meetings. And that there is something about that physical connection between people that's just different. And also just both the way society is coming together, but also, and how wonderful that's been. You know, there's been a lot of community forming from all of this, but there's also been so much separation and so much, you know, us versus them. And that's also a very sad and challenging thing to look at. But mostly just those small changes adding up, and these big changes just feeling overwhelming in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I think while it's at first it felt like this COVID-19 it wasn't uniting us. We've seen a little bit more of the divisions lately as things open up, and what do people believe? It felt good in the beginning, and now it's that there's a challenge there as well. How do we make sure we continue to feel that? Thank you, Hillary. Anyone else want to share? I think Lucille. Yeah.
Lucille.
Yeah, in my group, we sort of took a cue from Rabbi, your statement of interconnectedness versus isolation. And we talked about how this has caused us to set new priorities, more priorities within our lives for what's important and what we can easily shake off. Also, little things mean a lot now, where we just sort of took for granted little things. Now they've become more important to us. And even connecting to people we haven't spoken to or seen in so long, because we have extra time now to reach out to people we haven't connected with in years and years. Somebody said she's met new neighbors. You know, the neighborhood has changed. And now that we're walking around the neighborhood, we're connecting to people who we had never met really before and talking to them. Also, the advantage of having Zoom for families, people who live far off are being connected now, really. Not seeing each other for years and years, but through Zoom they can now meet as a family, extended. And there was a final statement about what do we do next? How do we come out of this? How do we decide for ourselves how to ease out of our isolation? But I guess that goes back to, we have set new priorities and knowing what's important to each of us. So I guess we have to make personal decisions.
Thank you. Anyone else want to reflect what they heard?
Rabbi Ethan, this is Marilyn.
Please.
Okay. Our group were very much focused on when Rabbi Kroloff was talking about the essentialness of voting with the upcoming vote, and how important it is, and the concern about everybody that in the past only 50% of the total population even came out to vote, and moving with the voting, that the importance of moving into the leadership that we have, that we are all in this as one, that our government should be sharing the wisdom that we are not connected in subgroups, that we are all Americans, and how we're really looking for a leadership to share that, a federal government to take hold and move in that direction. Again, also to what Lucille mentioned, we all are very happy to have Zoom to keep those connections open, and would like to see that continue. But again, we miss the connections of not having personal meetings. And the fascism thought was interesting. And I think it opens up the adjective of we're all cautious and leading a life with caution, that what will and could occur in the future, we're not quite sure. And that's very frightening for all of us. And I guess lastly, just that globally, we are all connected, that what happens in one part of the world affects us. We can't build barriers. We can't hold off viruses that take place, that we have to care for what's going on globally.
Thank you. Anybody else want to reflect? Elaine, oh, you're muted. Oh, I can't.
Okay, good. I wrote a poem about the pandemic, and I think this might be a good time to read it since that's our subject, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
What a horrific time for the world to be in. The coronavirus has worn our nerves thin. COVID-19 knows no boundaries. It attacks one and all. Neither age, sex, nor ethnicity can escape its call. The hospitals are overflowing. There is great demand for supplies and ventilators, whatever is at hand. The numbers are staggering. So many have died. We need a vaccine, the results verified. And we need more testing. Without it, we can't move on. If the virus reoccurs, so many more will be gone. Thank you, first responders and the front lines, you're there, risking your lives to give much needed care. We got such a late start getting things that we need. We knew well in advance, but Washington wouldn't heed. Our president is an embarrassment. He has no empathy. The economy and his ratings is all he can see. But thanks to Governor Cuomo and his updates each day, real facts and advice help us healthy to stay. Excuse me.
That's the governor.
Social distancing, social distancing is a must, plus wearing a mask and staying home and safe is not too much to ask. Doing crosswords and jigsaw puzzles, watching lots of TV, reading, exercising, and cooking can make time just flee. Cleaning out basements, attics, and closets too. There is so much to look at, so much stuff to go through. Having meetings and coffee via FaceTime and Zoom. Everyone is together, but not in the same room. Food and necessities can be delivered. Thanks to Instacart, we get by, though it's true toilet paper is in short supply. The loss of money and work is devastating, it's true, but helping each other, we will make it through. With time and with hope, we will survive and be very grateful to have come through alive. This pandemic has taught us some things we forgot, to look at ourselves and all that we've got. We learned important lessons, things we should think of, to value our connections and the people we love. Don't take things for granted. COVID-19 made this very clear. Let's cherish our lives and the things we hold dear.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Here
you got several chairs. Can we, thank you very much. Is there one or two other reports to share?
Yes. Our group took a look from the worldview. They were concerned that it's 1933 all over again, that history is repeating itself. The economic, political upheaval and the economic disparity is historically, as we've learned in 1933. Now Congress controls big business controls Congress, and nothing is getting done. There was a concern that there might be some improvement around the edges, but systemic change is much more difficult to occur, and that is where the change has to happen. Recognized again the crucial voting in November. There was some hopeful notes that there will be change, that small steps need to be taken, and eventually there'll be change in the right direction for all these disparities that we've talked about during this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very helpful. Is there another report? Anyone?
I don't see anybody.
Yes,
Jackie.
okay, yes, our group also talked about the importance of personal contacts, contacts with friends and things like that, and people like that, but also contact with people, African Americans. We have a long history of working with an African American church, but I never once asked, until this week, asked one of those members whether their sons they had to have the talk with their sons, and everyone was very happy and responded to me, glad that I did ask that question, and yes, every single one of them did. Along those lines, our group also talked about what do we do now? How do we go about the Cohen's Threat March? I heard the stories about the people who were affected. Where do we go from here? How do we move on to the next step. And even though we've had experiences of anti-Semitism, things like that, we need to be thinking worldwide and how we can make it a better world.
Shall we, if there's nobody else, perhaps.
I think Diana Cohen wanted
Sorry,
something.
excuse me,
I-
Diana?
She had
Diana? Diana?
Oh, she's not there.
No. All right.
Is there anyone else
She was.
reporting?
Diana's back.
Diana, did you want to report?
Her audio's off. Her audio is off. Yeah. She's talking. But we can't hear.
So just a couple of reflections as we close. For me, I think it's important to hear and listen to the needs of this community. And I think it aligns with many of the initiatives that we see ourselves working on towards the future. So just so you know that we will be doing another civic engagement campaign, our synagogue. We'll be unrolling that over the summer. What will that look like? How will we make sure that people get out to vote? How do we make sure that we're 100% voting congregation? As well as we had a tutorial on voting by mail and other things like that. That's always an important part of making sure that we all vote. Where, as Jackie shared, we've had a long history with a church in Plainfield, a Black church in Plainfield. We've reached out to them, see if we can partner in the future, but if not them, where are the new partners and how do we make sure that we listen and we look deeply into ourselves to figure out understanding our past, understanding our privilege, understanding race as well. We have a first meeting to kind of understand what we will be doing as a synagogue. And the last thing is, I thought it was very poignant about how do we get out of this? Or how do we reemerge from our houses or reemerge from our little boxes over Zoom? And I think that will be a slow process. We are, as a synagogue, we'll begin to do that, but we'll be cautious and we will be methodical. And we will be sharing that probably in the coming week about what that looks like for our synagogue. But how do we come out of this as an individual, I think is really important as well. How do we feel secure? How do we feel safe? And when people are doing other things and we don't feel that way, there's gonna be a lot of peer pressure as well. And so how do we say, actually, I don't wanna do this. And so while it would be wonderful, I can't. And that's something that we've been struggling a little bit with as well. But I am grateful for this group and able to have the conversations with all of you.
Thank you.
I want to thank Rabbi Prosnit for participation today and on a larger scale for everything that you've done and will be doing to lead in the future. A couple of thoughts, just segueing at exactly the same feelings about easing out from this. I've seen during the COVID, I call it house arrest, my self-imposed house arrest. During house arrest, I've seen a lot of respect within families and individuals. We're all in different places. We're physically in different places, and we're different places demographically, age-wise, underlying conditions or not. I've seen a lot of respect and very little pressure. Why aren't you doing this or that? Quite the contrary. Take care of yourself and be safe. I felt that in terms of decisions, this period is the easy part. It's easy. I'm home and I'm walking and a little distant, some distant outside with family, and that's it. That's really it. Aside from telephone and Zooms. It's as we open up that we're going to have decisions every day. I mean, I'm already having those decisions as I get phone calls from dental office or medical office. Are you coming in for this or that? And the barbershop. Those are decisions. And each of us has to make those decisions based on how we feel about our own safety and security. And I know and appreciate the respect that comes from everyone else. It's a time for respect and embracing virtually and not for pressure. And I think that's what we're experiencing. That's good. The other piece is on a high note, 75 to 80% of Americans appear to be supportive of the protests and of the cause of ending racism. 75 to 80%. That's an enormous number. You can't find that number agreeing upon 3 flavors of ice cream. It's a great thing, and that gives me hope. And the people who are not are going to get left behind, and that's good. That's good. So I'm hopeful for that. None of us knows whether the changes that we're seeing before us are going to be lasting or not. We just don't know that. But each of us can work hard to help make them so. Rabbi Prosnit, we're going to be eagerly looking forward to hearing what the plans are for dealing with racism and for moving out into the world. But I know that the synagogue is going to be there for everyone, whether we are very slow and conservative in moving forward, moving out, or whether we feel we can be more proactive, whatever it's going to be. I know that the synagogue will be there for all of us. You're our rabbi. Final word, and let's just
Can I just plug a couple of events coming up? Tuesday Bible class. It's the last one with Rabbi Miller tomorrow morning at 9:45. We will then take a 2-week break, and then we'll start Bible class again in July and August. That's different than past years, but we will be on Zoom, and maybe in August we'll have the opportunity to gather together socially distanced. I will be teaching some. Rabbi Victor Appel will be teaching, as well as our youth learning engagement. She'll teach one class over the summer as well. Wednesday, we have a lunch and learn with our congregant Audrey Fish, who's going to be talking about bias and fake news, and how do we make sure what we're reading is true on both sides of issues. So please join her. That's at 12 o'clock. It'll be an interactive program. And then on Thursday at 7:30, we have a program with the Anti-Defamation League as part of our signature synagogue program. Anti-Semitism online and other hate speech online. How do we combat that? And then Friday, I'm teaching a class with the JCC, Shabbat poetry at 11:15, and then we'll have services to thank Rabbi Miller that evening as well. That's the update. And then starting in July, we're going to have a couple listening campaigns to hear about the high holidays. What are the highlights of the high holidays for you as we begin to craft the services, knowing that those will look different, as well as other opportunities to meet Rabbi Victor Appel and other teachings throughout the summer as well.
We don't have any other lunch and learns planned at the moment. It's possible we might slip one more in the next month or two. We'll see about that. If there's something that you all would like to see discussed on Lunch and Learn, let me or Rabbi Prosnit know. We'll try to do that. We wish you all good health. Be safe. Have a good week.
You too. Have a good week, everybody.
And for those of you who are able, have a good walk.
It's a beautiful day out.
Good week.
Enjoy.
Enjoy.
Thank you.